Your intelligence is the reason you're losing money. Think about it. The man who discovered gravity and invented calculus could go bankrupt in a single trade. What chance do you have? That's exactly what happened to Isaac Newton. In 1720, one of the smartest people who ever lived lost the equivalent of millions of dollars in one of the first stock market bubbles in history. And the reason why he lost that money is the exact same reason people still lose money today. This is not just a strange story from the past. It's a warning. Because the trap that destroyed Newton's fortune is still catching investors 300 years later. Welcome to Strange Money, and today's story starts in London. The year is 1720. Britain is drowning in debt after years of war. The government owes enormous sums of money to investors. And suddenly, a company appears with an ambitious solution. It's called the South Sea Company. The idea sounds brilliant. The company will take over a large portion of the British national debt. In return, investors receive shares in the company. And those shares are supposed to become incredibly valuable. Why? Because the company claims it has exclusive trading rights with the rich Spanish colonies in South America. The mysterious South Seas. Gold, silver, exotic goods. A trading empire that could make investors unbelievably rich. At least, that's the story. In reality, the trade opportunities were extremely limited. Spain controlled those colonies very tightly. Very little actual commerce was happening. But none of that mattered, because something much more powerful had already started. The price of the stock began rising. In January 1720, a share of the South Sea Company cost about £128. Then the hype began. Investors rushed in. Politicians promoted the company. Newspapers talked about fortunes being made. The price climbed. £200, 400, 600. And by the summer of 1720, the stock reached almost £1,000 per share. That's nearly an 8-fold increase in just a few months. London went completely insane. Coffee houses turned into trading floors. People borrowed money to buy shares. Aristocrats invested. Merchants invested. Even servants and farmers tried to get in. And soon, something strange started happening. Hundreds of new companies appeared almost overnight. One promised to build a perpetual motion machine. Another planned to extract silver from seawater. And one famous advertisement simply said, "A company for carrying on an undertaking of great advantage." But nobody to know what it is. And people still invested. This moment in history became known as the South Sea Bubble. And somewhere in London, watching all of this happen, was Isaac Newton. Now here's the surprising part. At first, Newton handled the situation perfectly. He invested early. Then, as the price climbed, he did something most investors fail to do. He sold. Newton exited the market with about £7,000 in profit. In modern terms, that would be worth well over $1 million. By every rational standard, Newton had won. He had beaten the bubble. He had made a fortune. The story should have ended there. But it didn't. Because Newton made a mistake that destroys investors in every generation. He kept watching the market. Day after day, the price kept climbing. £600, 700, 900. People around him were getting richer. Friends, colleagues, neighbors. Men far less intelligent than him were suddenly buying estates. Carriages filled the streets of London. Fortunes appeared overnight. And Newton had already sold. Imagine how that feels. You are one of the greatest minds in history. You can calculate the motion of planets. You can predict the path of comets. But apparently, you sold too early. And everyone else is getting rich without you. This is where psychology begins to defeat intelligence. Because smart people are extremely good at one dangerous skill: rationalization. They can invent convincing reasons for almost anything. Newton started thinking, Maybe this growth is real. Maybe the crowd understands something I don't. Maybe this is a new financial revolution. Eventually, even Isaac Newton couldn't resist the pull of the crowd. He bought back in. But this time, he didn't buy early. He bought near the top. By the summer of 1720, South Sea stock was trading around £1,000 per share. Newton invested heavily. Historians estimate that he eventually had around £20,000 tied up in the company. And that's when reality arrived. In September 1720, confidence suddenly started cracking. Investors quietly began selling. Rumors spread through London. The price slipped. Then it fell faster and faster. Within weeks, the stock collapsed from around £1,000 to roughly 200. An 80% crash. Fortunes vanished. Bankruptcies spread across the country. And Isaac Newton watched his fortune disappear. He lost around £20,000. In modern terms, roughly $4 million. After the crash, Newton reportedly said something that still echoes through financial history. I can calculate the motion of heavenly bodies, but not the madness of people. Think about that. The man who explained gravity admitted defeat to human behavior. And this is where the story stops being about the 1700s. Because the same pattern keeps repeating. In 2000, investors poured billions into internet companies that had no profits. In 2008, millions believed housing prices could never fall. In 2021, people bought digital coins simply because the price had gone up yesterday. Different century, different technology, same psychology. Every bubble begins with a powerful idea. Then the price starts rising. People make money. More people join. And eventually, the most dangerous thought appears. This time, it's different. But most of the time, it isn't. Isaac Newton spent his life discovering the laws that govern the universe. But the market follows a different law. Human behavior. And that law has a cruel sense of humor. Because every generation believes it is smarter than the last one. Every generation believes it finally understands the market. And every generation learns the same lesson. The hard way. 300 years ago, Isaac Newton tried to outsmart the crowd. 300 years later, millions of investors are still trying to do the same thing. And the market keeps teaching the same lesson. Over and over and over again. If you want to understand money, bubbles, and the strange psychology behind financial disasters, subscribe to Strange Money. Because the strangest thing about financial history is how often it repeats.